All right, everybody. Welcome back to another Blueprint Fundamentals Visual Scripting for Creatives Methods Applied course. We're working with arrays and for loops. We are in the middle of our journey in the different ways and methods for finding the closest actor to our character. And we're doing that as our context so that we can learn more about arrays and loops. Now, as before, let's start off by talking about what we're going to be doing with method 3 today. Method 3 is a little bit different. We are actually going to sort our array, and we're going to use that sorted array to basically, because they will be in order, we will be able to use either the last item or the first item to find either the closest or the farthest, and that will also do a couple things for us. So let's take a look at what we have here. If we go back to our example, we have our character, we have our array of objects, and we have our distances. Now, what we're going to do to sort this is we are going to go through our distances just like we went through before, and we're going to find the max of this array. Now, the current max in distances is 20. So we're going to create a for loop that's going to go through our array, and it's going to get all the distances, and then we're going to find the max. And the max the first time through in our second for loop is 20. So what we're going to do is we're going to take B and we're going to put it in our 0 position of a new array. So now, then what we're going to do is we're going to remove the largest item for our array. And we're going to have a new array. And our new array is going to have 3 items in it. Well, which one is the furthest away, or like basically the largest number in this case? That distance is 10, so it's the item in slot 0, which is A. So we'll put A into our new array, keeping track so that they're in order, and then we're going to do the same thing again, and we are going to remove an item. Now, there is a trick to this, and this is important to understand. What's going to happen is our array is going to reorder, and now we have 2 items. But notice our indices stay 0 to 1. Okay, now which item is the largest? In this case, it's D. So we can put D into our new array, and we will do the same thing one more time. And this time we will end up with this, where C. There's only 1 item in our array. That's fine, so we'll put C. So our sorted order is B, A, D, C. B is 20, A is 10, D is 7, C is 5. So then with this new array, we know that the first item is the farthest away, and the last item in this case is the closest. Now we could flop this if we did our min-max trick or whatever, but this is a way for us to systematically go through the array and effectively sort it so that the final output is in order. So now there's a couple things. In traditional scripting, there are many ways to sort an array. This is not necessarily a programmatic way. It's the closest method of sorting this would be what's called an insert sort. But there are many different types of sort. There's bubble sorts and all those kinds of things. We can go over 1 or 2 of those if you all want to, but for now, let's just go over the sorting in Engine. So this is what we're going to be doing, and I'm going to show you a problem or a trick if we do this a different way. So here we are in our engine, and for those of you who have not gone through the original course, what we have is we just have a simple third-person scene with 4 items in the scene, and we want to draw which ones are the closest. In this particular case, method 1 is hot pink, method 2 is blue, and it draws whichever one we are closest to. We're going to up this, we're going to level this up, we're going to draw all of them, and we're going to size them based on their distances too. Once again, we're doing this with arrays applied. So let's create a new function. We're back in our third-person character just for ease. And in this case, we're going to call this get closest. We're not going to call this get closest object. We're going to call this sort objects by distance method. We are going to call this method C just to keep it going. Okay, now, before we do this, I do want to address the elephant in the room. We've done all this work to find the closest object. If you do a little bit of research, if we right click out here and we type near an actor, there is a function that is built into Unreal called find nearest actor. Well, why are we doing all this work if there's already a function that will find the nearest actor for us and give it to us? Well, again, the whole point of this is to learn how arrays and for loops work. And so in this particular case, that's what we're doing. And because of this new method that we're using, we're going to actually sort them. There's some wins here, but you could very easily use this find nearest actor. You give it in a list. So if we go back to method B, or we don't even need to do that. Let's just get all actors of class, get all actors of class. And just like before, the class that we're going to get is our item base. And in this particular case, we get an array of actors. And if we feed in our actor location, get actor location, this is our self. This is going to return the actor that is closest to us. And I can very quickly draw a debug sphere. I'm not even going to make it pretty. I'm just going to get the location of the closest one. This is going to draw a white sphere of radius 60, or that's 660 for 2 seconds and 1. So this is going to draw a, oh, we need to actually call it actually. Let's go back to our event graph. And we will do sort. And we're going to rename this actually. But if we play now, what will happen is we have a white sphere right on top of our pink sphere on top of our blue sphere. So all the work we did to create those pink and blue spheres, it is not wasted. Because we may not always be looking for the closest actor. We may be looking for the most ammo, or the least amount of health, or any number of things that is not pre-built into Unreal Engine. And so you need to be able to find the max and the min in an array, sort them, etc. So let's make a couple changes here. So we're going to call this, I'm going to rename this real quick. Get, because this is technically a method, get closest. This is going to be get closest object method elephant, because it's kind of off the scope. And then we're going to create a brand new function. This is going to be called get sorted objects method, and we'll keep with our letters C, for example. All right, and in here, as before, we need to get all actors of class. And the class that we're going to get in this case, as before, is our items, our item base. And then for each one of these, we are going to get their location. And we're going to get a reference to ourselves, which, because this is our third person character that's doing all this work, we're going to get that our location. We're going to measure the distance between the two using the vector distance. Alrighty. And then what we will do is we will add this to a new array. So we need a new array. Let's call this local. This is going to be local. It's going to be a float. And it's loc distances. And all we do is we add. We choose add, just like we did before. So at this point, we have an array called local distances that is filled with all the distances between ourselves and each of the items, ready to go for us to work with. Now, there's some trick. We're going to do this a little bit of a different way than we did before, because there is a potential hiccup in the traditional method. Now, the traditional method that we've been using before to loop through an array is we get the array like we have here, and we just do a for each loop. Now, here's the problem with the for each loop. we have no access to the index. And we are going to be removing things from this array. And as a result of removing things from the array, it's going to mess with the indices of this for each loop along the way. What I mean by that is if we go back to an example, let's take this as an example. We start off with our array. And the first time through, our index is 0, right? Typically speaking, we'll call the first time through index 0. And when we go through, we find the largest element, which is this one, and we're basically going to remove that from the array, and we're going to put it in the new array. So then, the second time through, the index is 1, and we're going to remove one item, which in this case is the A slot. Now, when we remove that, what's going to happen is these are going to shift over. And our index is going to be 2. But we are already through because our array size is changing. So that for each loop is going through and doing index, all right, first time through index 1, second time through index, 0, then 1, then 2. However, it gets to 2, there's nothing left. There is no 2 index because we've been removing them as we go. So there's only 2 ways to do this. We could do it backwards. Whoa, backwards. Yes, you can actually go through for loops backwards. And the reason backwards would work is, let's do this backwards. Rather than starting at the beginning, if we start at the end, what's going to happen is the index is going to start at 3. Okay, we're going to find the largest one and we're going to remove it. And now we're going to be on our second time through. Our index is going to be 2. We're not using these. The for each loop is doing this for us. We're not actually using these, but the for each loop is doing this for us. The second time through, our index is 2 because we're going in reverse order. We're going to remove the largest, which is the item at slot 0. So if we duplicate this down, our third time through, all of this is shifted over. And look at what our index is now. Because we're going in reverse order, our index is 1. So there's still an item that exists here. This still works. And our largest number in this case is 7. So once again, if we duplicate this down, what ends up happening is this all shifts over, this gets removed, this gets moved over, and our index for our last time through is 0. So by going backwards, we ensure that that for each loop goes through each of the items in the array. So there's 2 ways to do this. 1, we can go backwards, or 2, we can force it to do all 4 by counting ourselves. So how in the heck do we do that? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get our distances. And then what we need to do is we want to go through this backwards. So if we drag off our local distances array and we type reverse, this is going to give us a for loop, but you'll notice that it says reverse on this. And as described, we're going to be going through this array backwards. And all we're going to do as we go through the array, we are basically going to find the max float in the array, max float of the array. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this to fill in a new array of sorted objects. And we're going to call this, so we're going to need a new array. So let's create one. We'll call this sorted actors. Sorted actors. And we need to change the type. This is going to be, let's just make this an actor reference. And what we want to do is we want to, I'm actually going to promote our out actors to a variable to make this easier. Let's promote this to a variable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our out actors and I'm going to get the item that is at the index. I'm going to get the actor that's at the index of the largest distance, basically, because these arrays match. And I am going to add that to our sorted actors, which currently on the first time through is empty. Now, once we have done that, we need to remove the one that we just added to our array of sorted actors, so that the next time through we are getting the next largest, and so on. But there's a trick to this, and this is super important. This will not work the way this is right now because here's what we're going to do. After we do this, we're going to take our out actors and we're going to remove an item at the index. And the item, or the index of the item that we're going to be removing, you would think you could just drag off of here and remove this item index. But you can't, because what happens is we're also going to be removing, we have to remove the item from both our distances array as well as our original sorted actors array. And you'd think you could just drag off of here like this. But the problem is when you do this by removing the item from local distances, if you do this in the wrong order, all of the indices will be messed up, because every single time that this pen is read, it reevaluates this node. It's almost like, if you've watched any of our previous trainings, it's almost like a random integer float. We need to store this. Just to be safe, I'm going to store this. So I'm going to promote this to a local variable, and I'm going to set this. We'll name this local variable as local max value index, or let's call it local index of max value. And rather than using that, we're going to connect this in here. Oops. Let's disconnect this and reconnect it up, and then we will take our local max index. This way, it does not matter the order. This will just work, because it's not going to be, basically, what will happen is if I remove it, then when it tries to get the max, it's getting the max from a different sized array when I'm doing it for the out actors versus the local distances. All right, so to recap, we have our distances. Then we're going through our distances in reverse order, and we're getting the index of the longest or the largest distance, and you could change this to min or max, whatever you want. And then we are adding that item that's in our out actor array to our sorted actors array, and then we remove from both the distances and the actors array that item at the index for both of them, and then we come back through and we do it again. So theoretically, when we're done, what we have is an array of sorted actors. Now, what we're going to do is, just to double check that this is working, is we're going to do one more for loop here, and we're going to draw our favorite thing. We're going to do a bunch of drawing. So let's draw a debug sphere, and we're going to get the actor location. And you're thinking, how are we going to draw all of these? We're going to change the radius of each sphere as we go. So let's talk a little bit about this. First off, we know the sphere location is going to be where our actor is. I want to change the color to green, and then let's change the duration to 2 and the thickness to 1. Now, in order to change this radius, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the index. Now, if I connect the index straight in to a multiply, if I multiply this by, let's say 25, let's say we start at 25, here's the problem. The first time through this array of actors, of sorted actors, what's our index? It's 0. And 0 times 25 is 0. So our first sphere would have a radius of 0, so we would never see it draw. So what we want to do is we want to add 1 to our indices. So what's going to happen now is the first time through, our index is 0. What's 0 plus 1? 1 times 25 is 25. Second time through, what's our index? 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 20 is 50. So it's going to go 25, 50, 100, and so on. That's going to draw each of our spheres. So now that we have that, recap, store our distances, go through and basically find the max and fill a new array with all of those while we're moving items in reverse order. And then once we've done that, we will go ahead and basically draw our sorted actors. So let's see what that looks like. We forgot to call the function. So our brand new function is not actually being called in our event graph. So let's go back, and after our elephant, let's get the sorted method C. We'll call that now, and when we run, we forgot to connect in our actors to our for loop. We were not actually going through this for loop, so we stored it so that we could use out actors down here, but we forgot to actually connect it in. So if we go ahead and press play, we have our spheres. Now, this is working as intended in the sense that if you'll notice, we have our green sphere. The largest one is the one that's closest to us. So if we move, but it's drawing different sizes based on their sort order. So you can see which one in distance is closest to us. So if we move over here, this is going to change the order. And you can see that it basically goes large to small. Now the cool thing about doing this like this is, unlike the just getting a single item that's sorted, let's say that you want to get the closest actor that has the most health for targeting reasons. Well, or no. Let's say you want to get the closest actor that has, let's say you want to get the closest actor that has an item equipped. So the problem is, if you get the closest actor or the furthest actor away, it doesn't matter. Using the previous methods, you get 1 actor back. If you look at that actor and it doesn't have the item you're looking for, how do you find the next one? Well, with a sorted array, what you can do is you can basically sort all of your actors, and then you start at the top. You look at the closest one. Does it have the item I need? Nope. Then go to the next one. Does it have the item I need? Nope. So maybe the third one does. So by sorting your array and returning all of the actors but sorted by distance, you can do something like basically you can use that as a means to find the actor that has the item that is closest to you, which may not necessarily be the closest actor in this case. So that's why we are doing this using a sorting method. Okay, so this currently works in the sense that we've demonstrated the solution for going through this in reverse order, which is great. Now, I had mentioned one more way of doing this exact same thing where you didn't have to worry about the reverse order, and what I said was we could do this using the size of the array instead. So let's just go ahead and knock out method D. So get sorted objects method D. Now we're going to cheat a little bit here. We're going to go back to C, and let's just copy all of this as a starting point. Paste it in here. So Control C, Control V works in blueprints, just in case you did not know that. Our out actors is not currently a variable for us. So let's promote this. Because the copying didn't rename, I'm going to promote this to a local variable here. And we'll call this out actors. And then I'm not going to forget to connect it in this time. So we're going to go through our array. This is going to get all of our distances. We do need a variable called local distances. I can actually Control C this, Control V that. Of course, it pasted it. It's pasting it in variables instead. So let's just add one We'll call it local distances, and we'll set it to float, and we'll compile that. And this it does not like. This should work. Okay, so now we're back to where we were before. This is method D. We have our list of items. We're storing that just so that we can use it later. Then we're going through our for loop and we're getting all of our distances. Now, this time, instead of going through the loop in reverse, we are actually going to control the loop using our own indices. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to right click and we're going to type for and loop. But you'll notice if I don't drag off, so typically what you do is you take your local distances and you drag off and you get a for loop. And you'll see you get the for each, but that's not what we're going to do. If we just right click in blank space, if we type for and loop, what we end up with is a for loop where we control the first and the last index. Now, in this particular case, what I want to do is I want to get our local distances and I'm going to get the length of this. Now this length I am going to promote to a local variable, and this local variable I am going to call total loop count, for example. And I am going to connect into that. And then the way the for loop works is it takes a start index and a first and a last index. And in this particular case, we're going to start at 0. Just generally speaking, that's where we start. But our last index, we are going to use this total loop count. However, we do need to do one more thing. The length of our distances, if we have 4 items, item bases, is 4. But remember, we start at 0. So we can't go from 0 to 4 because there will be 1 extra and that will cause an error. So we need to subtract 1. There's a little bit more work with doing it this way, but it's also really good to understand. It's also great practice for understanding how arrays work. So our first index is 0, our last index is 1, and then we are going to do the exact same thing we did in our previous one, where we are going to create a new array called sorted actors. We are going to make this an array of actors. And what we want to do is the exact same thing. We're going to take our local distances, we're going to get the max float array, and this is going to give us an index. Now, just like before, for safety, I'm going to store this as a temporary local variable. So this is going to be index of max this time. And what we're going to do with that is we are going to get from out actors, get the item that's at this max index. And we are going to add it to our sorted actors. So exact same thing we were doing before. We're getting the item, or we're getting the index that matches in position for our original actor list plus our distance list. We're going to get the actor that's at that position. We're going to add it to our sorted list. And then we need to remove, we actually need to remove the items in each of the arrays. So we're going to do the exact same thing we did before, where what we'll do is we'll take our local distances and let's remove. And this is a perfect example where if I did this in this order and this was connected in, this would break the loop. So what I want to do is I want to use the index of the max. And then from our out actors, I want to do the same thing. Let's remove an index. And the index we're going to remove is the index of the max. So each time through this, we are going to basically grab, we're going to grab the largest distance we're going to take that actor and add it to our sorted list of actors. Then we're going to remove that one from our list. Then we're going to come through our array again. We're going to find the max and so on. The difference is we are going through the array an explicit number of times, in this case 4 times, 0 to 3, whereas before we weren't managing the size of the array, we were just doing the whole thing in reverse. So when we're done, we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. Let's go ahead and print, or not print, let's draw this, but we're going to make a change so we can see it. So our sorted actors, we're going to go through that array and we're going to go +1 again and the same, but rather than starting at 25, let's make it slightly different. Let's start at 27 and then let's make the color, what color haven't we used yet? Let's go with yellow, I believe it is. And this should do the exact same thing as method C, but we're actually explicitly controlling the size of the array. So let's go back to our event graph and let's call method D. And let's see how we did. All right, looks like we are spot on. So here's what we have. We have each of our original methods, right? We have the original one where it's just the pink and the blue, and actually the blue one flashing is kind of driving me nuts a little bit. Let's just fix that. That is going to be in method B, I believe it was. Oh, no, actually that's in our event graph here. Blue, let's just change this to 2 seconds so it's not flashing. Okay, cool. So now what's going to happen is, let's talk. When we're standing next to this, both the hot pink and the blue spheres are the previous methods where we were just finding the largest item, in this case, the max distance, or in the minimum one that is closest to us, okay? And then we're drawing that. Now, each of the green and yellow spheres is 2 different ways of looping through our array to effectively create a new array using an insertion method. We take the item from the original array, we insert it into a new array, we remove it from the original, and then we loop again, we get the max distance, and we go on from there. And so now as we move around, these will change in size to match based on whichever ones are closest to us. So that is a wrap up of 2 different ways to take a look at how to sort your array of final actors that you can then use to, for example, find the closest one plus something else. Find the closest one with an item, etc., where you have a whole list now that you can look at and go, or maybe you want to do something like this. For example, the further away they are, the less damage they get, as an example. Anyways, the point is you can't do that with the elephant in the room method because it's just going to get the one actor. Now, in addition to learning a whole bunch of stuff about arrays and loops, you've also set yourself up to be able to do even more beyond what's available to us in Unreal. So that wraps up our 3rd Loops and Arrays Applied video. We have one more, I think, that we'll do that's coming, which is going to be sorting using a traditional programming sort method. That's it's just for fun. Probably wouldn't use that all that much, but it'll be a fun one to go over just so that you can learn even more. And that one involves nested for loops, which is a lot of fun. So, as always, thanks for checking out the video. Throw your comments down in the comments below. Let us know how we're doing. If you like what we're doing here, help us out. Spread the word. Let everybody know what we're doing. We very much appreciate it. And I will see you all on the next tutorial. Take it easy.